my fellow American. Sorry. Hi, good evening. Good evening, everybody. The name is Amit. I am, you can say I'm a cousin of Barry. We are related through the photographer in the wedding or something. But we are mishpacha, and definitely Aliyah is officially my young sister, as we adopted her, whether she likes it or not, into our family. She's a lone soldier in Israel, and soon an officer. Yeah. I'm married, believe it or not, to Amit. Me and my wife have the same name. Both of us were normal people 4 kids ago, and now we live in a small village called Kidron that even Israelis don't know where that is. Okay, but it's actually not too far, unfortunately for us, from the Gaza Strip. Many years ago, like every Israeli, I joined the army. Dr. Schwartz took one look at me and said, office job, immediately. So I volunteered to the officer training school. I was a manpower and logistic officer, and in the last 14 years I had the best job in the army as a reservist. I'm a lieutenant colonel, but in reserve, and I'm dealing with search and rescue in the home front. So my job is, thank God, not to take life, but to save life. And we've been very busy in the last couple of months. The first 5 to 6 weeks of the war were incredibly difficult. And then as the Israeli army moved and took the war into enemy land, and I say Baruch Hashem, thank God for that, then the enemy missiles and rockets were lower and lower and smaller, and eventually almost stopped completely. And this is why I'm here now. They released my unit and some other units. I see this event, and I thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Nussbaum, for the opportunity. I see that as the beginning of my own new mission. I'm a tour guide as a civilian. So I'm a storyteller. It's what I do. And this is the first time I'm going to try and tell a story that I was, until a few weeks ago, till 10 days ago, part of. And it is a story that is ongoing. Usually when you're a tour guide in Israel, you speak about events that happened gazillion years ago. Okay? They tried to impress me in Oahu with a 100-year-old building. But or sometimes I talk about recent wars that could be 50, 60, 70 years ago. 6-Day War, I wrote a book about, and this is new. This is ongoing. Okay? My wife had to grab our 4 kids just 24 hours ago and run with them to the local bomb shelter because there was a rocket siren. Okay, nothing happened. It was an Iron Dome, blew up. Have you ever heard of the Iron Dome? Sure. The problem is that it's very popular. Yeah. Let's say that we hear about it in Israel, literally. But when you take out the rocket, the shrapnels can fly miles around, and then the siren sounds, and tons of people have to run to the bomb shelter. So just another day in the office in Israel, I guess. And it's kind of weird. I mean, I'm here, but I'm there too at the same time. So let's start the Gaza war. I'm calling it the Gaza war. We don't even have a name for this war yet. So let's just call it the Gaza war. And Barry just told me that the war is now actually expanding. And I heard that the American army for the first time took part in this growing conflict, as many suspected will happen. We will see. Now, Israel is located, if you think you are in a bad neighborhood, think again. Okay. Israel is located here. This is tiny Israel. That little thing over there is surrounded with Arab states. Okay, the only friendly border we have is the Mediterranean Sea, basically. And our friends are far from us. Okay? And we have inside the state of Israel 2 enclaves that are what we call the Palestinian territories. Okay? Let's take this away. We'll end up in a disaster. By the way, since it is going to embarrass her, I have to do it. This is Aliyah in a basic training uniform.
Awesome.
That is actually her Magab uniform.
Her Magav uniform.
Yes.
But that's where she did her training. Yeah, Mishmar Kol.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Jacob, our paratrooper. All right. So, the Gaza Strip is a tiny piece of land, 141 square miles. It's the size of a county, more or less. But it has one of the highest, if not the highest, population density on Earth, with 2.3 million people living there, and one of the highest birth rates on the planet, with the population, 50% of the population is below the age of 22, last time we checked. Okay, they double their numbers all the time, while claiming they are being under a genocide. They keep saying that, but their population is actually booming very, very fast, and it is surrounded by a thin line of Israeli kibbutz communities, communes, and in the Gaza Strip you have a terror organization, recognized terror organization called Hamas. Hamas initials are over here, Harakat al-Muqawama al-Islamiyya, which means the resistant Islamic movement. Okay? Last time I checked, they are not exactly the Peace Corps. Hamas is dedicating everything it got to eliminate the state of Israel, physically eliminate the Jewish people, using very anti-Semitic terminology. For example, they truly believe that the Jews control the global media and the global armies and the global economy. And boy, they hate our gods. Okay? And their goal is to turn Israel into their version of Palestine. Palestine is the only state on earth that never existed before it was conquered. And Hamas sees it as a waqf, as a holy Muslim ground, which means one day it must become an Islamic state. And therefore you have the same methods that the Islamic State used, ISIS. Okay? Relatives. Here's a bunch of leaders of Hamas. Three of them are very relevant for the current events. This one here, Yahya Sinwar, this monster is practically the commander of the Hamas armed wing. This one here, Muhammad Def, is some kind of a military leader as well, is mainly a symbol. And this one over here, the picture is blurred a little bit. Muhammad al-Awoui was taken out by, some say, Israel just about a week ago. May his soul rest in pieces. So, the Hamas budget, my friends, $2.5 billion US. The Gaza Strip, my friends, got over the years more money than the United States put in reconstruction of Europe after World War II, the Marshall Plan. Okay, $2.5 billion every year goes to, well, their priority. While the people are living next to the open sewer in some places in Gaza in serious poverty, there are a lot of people in Gaza that are actually rich. Do you know that before the war there were more than 9,000 millionaires in Gaza? Millionaires is US millions. Yeah. The leaders of Gaza, of Hamas, look at that. Ismail Haniyeh, Khaled Mashal, Abu Marzouk, look at that. They have more money than Oprah. Okay, and even Taylor Swift, believe it or not, where the money comes from. Some of it from your own pockets, some of it from my pocket, some of it by smuggling weapons and take commissions on everything they smuggle, from weapons to cigarettes, you name it, tobacco, into the Gaza Strip. Astronomical amount of weapons were found over there, and building tunnels. You guys been to New York City before? I was very impressed by the size of the metro system. It was so far, as Uncle Barry told me today, they found about 10 kilometers, which is 6 miles of tunnels every day. Okay? So we are talking about estimation right now of exposed tunnels, more than 1,000 miles altogether. The New York subway system is 300 miles. Okay? That's a lot of money that they put under the ground. The tunnels allows them to conduct asymmetrical warfare, to show up wherever they want, to be protected from our retaliation, while the people are the human shield above them. Okay? But we will talk about how much there is a real separation between the Hamas and the civilians. Okay? Hamas is indoctrinating the people from the age of infants to be, well, Hamas. Okay? If somebody told me yesterday, who's from Calvary Chapel, by the way? Okay, I was in Calvary Chapel, Honolulu, with Pastor Bill.
Last night,
Awesome, man. Just yesterday, he mentioned how the Nazis back in the day indoctrinated the children to become monsters after that. Okay? With one big exception. The Nazis, after all, were at least partly ashamed of what they did. Partly. They're not. But we will talk about that. If you look at the bigger picture, Allah is there to fly my proxies, says the Ayatollah of Iran. The Iranians, my friends, are behind much of what's going on in the Middle East. Allow me to sell another book, Larry. I wrote a booklet about the Iranian foreign policy. I need to update it, I guess, right now. They're putting billions of dollars subsidizing. Look at this salute. Sound looks familiar? Yeah. Nazis, yeah, but those are, you see the yellow flags? This is Hezbollah in Lebanon. You know what the meaning of Hezbollah? Party of God. Party of God, yeah. By the way, when they do their atrocities, and I will ask you guys to take the kids out of the room when we'll get to that, they shout, God is great. In Arabic. Allahu Akbar, right? They are working with those dudes that were just bombed by the American army a few hours ago. It's about time, if you'll ask me. The Houthi so-called rebels, they're not rebels, they control a third of Yemen. Okay? Somebody's buying those uniforms for them. Right? People misjudge those guys also in Israel to think that all they have is flip-flops, AK-47s, much more, my friends. Missiles, drones, radars, fast attack boats, helicopters, and training. Lots and lots of training. Where? In Iran. While Iran, you see, just butchered a lady called Liberty here because she was not wearing a hijab. They're trying to export their version of the Islamic Revolution, and the Persians will always use the Arabs around them, kind of like what the Americans are using paper cups for. One sip, throw it away. Meaningless. Okay? If you check, they never confront Israel or America directly. They're smarter than that. They always do it by proxies. It could be in Iraq, it could be in Syria, it could be in Lebanon, it could be in Yemen. They are active in Venezuela. They are active in North Korea. They are active in Morocco, Libya. Wherever there is instability, you will find their proxies. But hey, at least it is never going in the Middle East, thanks to them. I mean, look at the bright side. At the same time, while this danger is creeping and closing on Israel, Israel suffered from the most unstable political year we had. 2023, I don't know how much it was here in the evening news. I know Uncle Barry was talking about it. But there is a very, very controversial government in Israel now, controlled by Benjamin Netanyahu. His refusal to step down after accusations and advanced trials of corruption, and surrounded himself with a handful of parties that are unacceptable by most of the Israeli public. Wow. He created a rift in the society that, ironically, the only thing that could close that rift is an historically large trauma. And Hamas just gave it to us. Okay? Only a war can close that. But I'm talking about streets that were blocked by protesters. I was guiding tours at that time. And we had to go around, block streets, you name it. By the way, the Israeli type of protests, unlike certain other countries I heard of, we don't burn cars, break windows, etc. And nevertheless, the general feeling in Israel was bitter. And the army and the Secret Service started picking more and more conversations in the Arab and the Islamic streets. They smelled weakness. And warning started arriving to the table of Netanyahu, who refused to step down or to try to slow his very, very questionable reforms of the judicial system of Israel. I don't want to enter that because this is too much of politics, okay? And when you have two Jews, you usually have three opinions. But one thing is for sure, we lost the unity that we need. And since Israel has barely 8 million Jews and 2 more million people that are not Jews, 10 million together surrounded by 500 million Arabs, you gotta have unity or you will simply not be there the next day. While Hamas was planning an attack on Israel using, by the way, would you say they did a very good job in hiding their intentions, okay? They used very low tech, they used notes, very small meetings, never used cell phones, never used computers or emails. Everything was word to mouth. They managed to hide it so well their own people only knew what their mission is, okay? I'll give them that. They hid it very, very well while they were sending people, and Israel blessed them for that. They told them, yes, you can come and work in Israel. They basically convinced Israel that they're not wishing to go to war. And we believe that. I think Barry, we wanted to. We convinced ourselves. And while in the West Bank, let's pass this one quickly, while in the West Bank, there was more and more flaring conflict, low intensity one, and who was behind it if not Hamas? Okay? We sent more and more forces to the West Bank and left the soldiers in Gaza basically by themselves. Okay? And we're going to talk about that very soon. Also, and that's part of the tragedy, and it is to be investigated in the near future, I'm sure. Apparently, a lot of that,
Field observers.
Field observers. All-female unit, by the way. Their sole job is to monitor the border. They started picking up warnings. They saw the Hamas officers with binoculars scanning the border. They saw the enemy drills, and they were ignored by their own officers. At a certain point, the officers were angry on them, and they threatened them with court-martial if they will continue their childish nonsense. Okay, if this is true, you are talking about an intelligence failure as big as Pearl Harbor decades ago. Okay, a female officer, again I'm quoting the news. Okay, except American Truth Project, you never check the news without a big chunk of salt. Okay, a grain of salt that big. And yet they say that a female officer managed to figure out the Hamas plan, printed it, gave it to her commanding officers who told her, it's nonsense, shtuyot. Okay? Well, apparently it was not. Here is a satellite picture of the burned out fields soon after what we will always remember as the bloody Shabbat, Shabbat HaShchora. Okay? The enemy chose a holy day 50 years plus 1 days after their onslaught in the Yom Kippur War. The Arabs attacked Israel and got us completely by surprise in Simchat Torah. That's the day we celebrate receiving the Holy Torah. And while soldiers were on vacation, I was in a vacation with my kids in the north. It started. Okay, so the Hamas, all of a sudden, in amazing coordination, started firing, I'm talking about rain of rockets that we've never experienced before. The computers of my unit of the home front were flooded by missile warnings. I could not take out, taking the kids out, could not take out so many rockets that coming, which means that they started hitting the cities. Okay, the kids are out, right? This is, thank you. 11 civilians were killed just from that. One Bedouin family, Israeli, was wiped out by one of those rockets. Okay, just people think now about the Hamas, ground attack, but let me tell you, the rockets did horrific damage. Ashkelon alone got 91 explosions on that day, the city of Ashkelon. They took out all the cameras in a matter of minutes, using snipers, missiles, and drones that flew and dropped bomblets into tank hatches, into gun turrets, into military vehicles. Basically, in minutes, they neutralized the border fence that Israel built with such pride. Okay? Maybe there were cyber attacks, maybe not. I'm pretty sure there were, but it's to investigate in the future, I don't know. And they sent 2 waves of heavily armed Nukba. I'm calling them soldiers only here because of the equipment, my friends. Okay, they didn't act like soldiers, at least not Western soldiers. They acted like terrorists, but boy, they were armed and trained like soldiers. Okay, from boots to uniforms, tablets attached to their legs with coordinates of to every soldier or terrorist, you name them. They knew exactly where they are going. This one to block a junction, that squad to kill and rape, this squad to blow up the armory, another one to the Sderot police station. They knew exactly. You call that flooding. Okay, you flood the enemy defenses, and the enemy is us. And they created such mass, chaos, and havoc that the Israeli army was completely shocked. And the first order from the Kiryat, from the Tel Aviv headquarters, came only an hour and a half after it all started. Okay, which of course was way, way, way too late. They used motorized parachutes. They showed up from the Zikim beach, which is a beautiful sandy beach, pretty much Hawaiian style of yellow beach, but they showed up from the waves. Divers, they had wet subs. Do you know what wet subs are? It's kind of like a small torpedo. You move very, very fast with it, then you leave it and you show up. Okay, they had a whole flotilla of fishing boats that confused the Israeli Navy, and then speedboats burst through it, and some of them managed to reach on the shore. They murdered 32 people on the shore in minutes, as soon as they arrived. Can you imagine just chilling on the beach in Hawaii, and suddenly those demons are showing up from the waves, starting to kill basically everyone that moves?
Right.
Here are some of the pictures. Okay, they used a lot of Toyota pickup trucks with machine guns on top. All the weapons, by the way, all the weapons of Hamas, you can see where they come from. Russia, a little bit from Iran, Chinese weapons, tons of them, North Korean, and a little bit from Ukraine. How they smuggled them, I don't know. I mean, I think I know, through Egypt. But how Ukrainian weapons arrived to Gaza, that was a surprise. I don't know. And here's some of the drones. If you think that Hamas don't know how to use drones, well, they can teach us all. Okay? The army failed. We failed. Because the very existence of the IDF, Israel's defense force, is to defend the Jewish people from genocide. If you don't understand the Holocaust, you don't understand Israel. Okay? And we failed. We failed to deliver what we were supposed to do. Protect Jews. Okay? And the enemy managed to flood all the bases. Look at the tank, by the way. It's a shameful picture. This tank was not even manned when it was stormed and taken. Thank God they didn't know how to activate its systems. Okay? But quite a few tanks were neutralized like that on the border without firing a bullet or a shell. Other units were caught and slaughtered in their beds. It was so fast. Some other units heard the rocket silence, ran into the bomb shelter, and they were butchered in the bomb shelters that were supposed to protect them. But if you're in a small bunker and the enemy rolls hand grenades inside, you're gone. Okay, we're talking about a complete disaster, and nevertheless, oh yeah, and they also went on the police, I forgot to say, the Sderot police station. The first pictures that started coming out were taken by Israeli citizens who were shocked, and they looked out of the window of Sderot and they saw the unbelievable sight of Hamas pickup trucks packed with militants armed to the teeth on their way straight. They knew exactly where they were going. They used Waze, an Israeli app, straight to the police station to take it out. So people started calling the police. The police was busy defending itself. Okay? There were only 8 police officers on that shift. All were killed. And this is very, very sad because those girls used as tactical observations in field intelligence, most of them died from the attack. You can see their camera stations over there. Kids are not here, right?
The one last line you didn't mention, how did they get all the, it said that Hamas, they had IDF uniforms. Where did they get all the
Oh, yeah.
uniforms?
You can get IDF uniforms very easily. You can even make them. And also, a lot of workers from Gaza used to work in the houses that some of them later on looted. And many times, you know, I'm answering your question and thinking about it as we speak. We used to do it in my farm. We used to give them all uniform because it's very good. I mean, you fix it a little bit. In some cases, they also took uniform of IDF soldiers that they killed. So yeah, they created the perfect chaos. Friends, they targeted mainly civilians. All that we've talked about was just the beginning. 22 kibbutz and moshav communities were attacked. When they entered the houses, many of the people tried to find shelter in, well, the bomb shelters. But the bomb shelters turned into death traps because they were never designed to stop physical onslaught of soldiers or militants inside the house. It's supposed to protect you from shrapnels, not from AK-47s, not from RPGs. They even had charges made in Russia, magnetic one. You just put it on the iron door, you blow it up. Whole families were butchered. Here's just 2 of them. Okay? Her name was Amit Man. She died trying to save life in the clinic of Kibbutz Be'eri, but a bunch of terrorists were heading that way. They knew that that's where the clinic is. That's where they ran. In almost all the kibbutz communities, we had guns, but very few, and they put them inside armories. So what Hamas did, ran straight there. People defended themselves with pistols and a handful of guns, while every kibbutz was attacked by 50 to up to 200 in some cases, militants that were overrun. We're talking about first responders. Look at those pictures. Okay, in this room, when the first responders eventually arrived, first responders came 7 hours later, they found that the whole family was butchered. They, I've seen it in my own eyes, they found a girl, the age of mine, Naomi, 9-year-old. They cut her arm with a knife, and let her bleed to death. Alone, with horrible pain and fear, she died in the arms of the medics. Bled out. It was too late when they got her. Okay? They found that babies and toddlers were beheaded. And the Hamas hanged their bodies outside of the houses as trophies. Okay? They found piles of, I'm sorry, I need to be graphic because people need to understand what those people did to us. They piled up organs that they pulled out of people. They burned bodies the best they could. Sometimes they piled up tires they found just to burn the body so it will melt completely. Sometimes whole families were found molten together and they did not know who is who. This is one of the reasons why the numbers of the casualties, they needed more than, actually only a few weeks ago I think they declared that now they know what happened to everyone. Okay?
They opened a pregnant woman.
sometimes I dream about it. When the first responders came, they found a woman lying on her belly. They flipped her and they found out that they butchered her from the vagina up, opened her pregnant belly, took out the baby, shot both of them. Okay? The worst atrocities actually happened in what ironically was a party and a music festival for peace. Okay, Israel was so many. This was not an unauthorized event. This was a well-organized festival. 4,000 people were there.
It happens every year.
Yeah. Just this time it was just a mile and a half from the border, because nobody thought it would be any problem. They even had 40 guards around them, but the guards had pistols. What could they do? They fought a little bit, but they were overrun. Here's some of the worst atrocities happened. Okay? Because you need to understand that the Hamas, they couldn't help themselves when so many young girls were captured by them. Okay? And Hamas, I need to say, all the atrocities were filmed and were uploaded by the Hamas militants while they are calling their friends and family with pride. Okay? When a girl was gang raped over there, one of many, okay, the Hamas took the video in with her own phone and sent it to her mother. Okay? While they were raping her, beating her, spitting on her. And after they killed her, they also decided it's a great idea just to pee on her dead body altogether. Another girl, they cut her breasts with a knife and tossed her between them, screaming and bleeding. And then one of them started raping her, and her screams were probably too much noise when he shot her in the head and kept raping her dead body. Okay? I'm telling you all that. It is not something I made up. They uploaded it to Telegram, to TikTok, you name it. And yeah, death pornography, I call it. 367 Israeli kids were murdered in that horrible party. Okay? Behind you there is a little memorial corner. Two of the victims over there came from my town, from Kidron. The young girl Kim, she was lucky, by the way, because she was only shot to death. But it took a week to identify her body because they were flooding the stations. How do you call it? Abu Kabil, like the place in Moore, Kadam Matin.
It's a base very quiet and
They tried. There is only one base that can take care of up to 70 bodies a day
Morgue.
in Israel.
Morgue.
More?
Morgue.
Oh, for the dead bodies, yeah, it's a morgue, yeah.
Yeah. But they had more than 1,100. Okay, this is why it took so much time to identify. Kim was declared missing. Her parents went through hell until eventually they knocked on the door to tell them they found her body. Okay, some of the people that ran away from the party were shot, and they tried to hide themselves somewhere, and they bled out. They died all alone somewhere. In some cases, days later, they found them by the vultures landing. Okay, when I got there, the skies were full of vultures. Okay, like medieval battlefield, basically. Yeah, this is the bodies, as you see. Every house that the Hamas managed to capture was burned to the ground. Each and every one of them. Okay? And when I came down here and Aliyah showed me some of the houses, it brought me back to Gaza, into the Gaza envelope, as we call it, immediately. It reminded me that. There is a graveyard for cars, more than 1,000 cars. Some of them are full of bullet holes, the others just burned, of the people from the party. Dante's hell, what can I say? Then came the looters. innocent civilians of Gaza heard the news about what's going on. Thousands of them, like locusts, burst from the many dozens of breaches and defense, looting. Some of the worst killings and kidnapping of people were made by them. Okay? The unarmed or civilians. By the way, many of the Gazans are not unarmed at all. AK-47 is something that you get there as easy as you guys buy Tic Tacs. Okay? And they looted whatever they could. Look at that. Somebody's grandmother is kidnapped with her own golf cart by the, let's call them looters. There were a lot of heroic stories. Aliyah is going to talk about some of them that were made actually by women. I'll just mention that in the first bloody day, we lost 3 colonels. Why we lost 3 colonels? Colonels, 3 stars. They're not supposed to be in the front. But you see, the situation was so desperate, they gathered 1, 2, 3 soldiers, their driver, their radio guy, I don't know what, and they ran trying to help. This guy, for example, was killed. By the way, they found only his head. The body was taken to Gaza. And weeks later, the rest of his body, what was left of his body, was found. Saved the kibbutz, because the kibbutz Nirim, because he managed to stop some of the terrorists there until he was gunned down. Okay, this fellow over here and his girlfriend drove back and forth into the nightmare party, risking their lives, and they managed to save 15 different people. Okay, so a lot of heroic stories. First responders that fought for hours and hours and hours. Over here, we need to remember the heroes of the Magen David and Ichud Hatzalah. Those are the first responders, medical. And some of the old generals. Look at those guys. They're even older than my own old man. And they took their uniform and a pistol and drove to fight the terrorists.
Tell them who your father is.
Oh, we'll get to Abba, don't worry, there is a slide for you. At the end of this horrible day, we managed to take the control back on all the settlements around Gaza in a heavy price of more than 300 soldiers. Okay? Every force that tried to reach and help was jammed or blocked, at least temporarily, by Hamas ambushes. They set more than 100 ambush points around Gaza. Okay, basically whoever tried to come and help was under fire. But eventually, at the end of that bloody day, we managed to take control of almost all the places, and in 4 days there were no more Hamas militants. Those are the numbers, my friends. The most terrible day since the Holocaust. 778 dead civilians, murdered, some of them in the most terrible ways, from the age of 0, or should I say unborn children, till grandparents. One of the worst failures, by the way, Barry, I do want to go back for that for a second, was an old lady, 91 years old, a Holocaust survivor. Hamas entered their house, forced her to go down on her knees and shot her, Nazi style, the back of her head. She survived the Holocaust and made her family, again, recreated her family in the kibbutz. Thank God her children are not in that kibbutz, but that's how she died, in Nazi execution. That was not supposed to happen. Okay? So many lives. The average age of the people we lost was very, very young. Okay? Mid-20s is the average. The Israeli retaliation started coming at the evening of that terrible Shabbat. American support, when it comes to the army versus army, by the way, my wife's uncle is the commander of the Nevatim Air Base. They have the Galaxy heavy jets landing there every day since the beginning of the war. And you know what? Here is Uncle Joe hugging Bibi. He arrived to Israel a few days after the beginning of the war, with his hand reaching truly, I think. And then I kind of something forced his hand back a little bit. But when it comes to American support, guys, thank you. what can I say? In some types of ammunition, what we shoot in the evening arrived that morning from America. And volunteers arrived from America too. So in some cases, you could not, you know that when there is a war in Israel, you cannot get a ticket into Israel because everybody goes back. My sister took that picture. She was slapped back to Israel by a military cargo airplane because there was no room for, you know, regular tickets. She was in Greece in a vacation. So that's how she arrived back to Israel. Okay, we're going to talk about my sister for a second. Volunteers came, thousands and thousands of Americans, and even those dudes, cowboys, okay, if I remember they're from Oklahoma, you think an average Israeli knows where Oklahoma is? Okay? But after they arrived, all the ladies started wearing high heels and all that. But yeah, cowboys, they came, well, they're not Jews, no. Pure volunteering, and those lads, well, that's just an example of my own family. Aliyah, apologies, the picture you sent me came. But, oh, there it is. This is the family, okay? Here's my first cousin, Michal. She serves in the Kiryan, not far away from you. Noah, my sister, combat paramedic. Omer, my cousin, serving in the combat reconnaissance unit in Gaza right now. My Abba, the very nose, 70 years old. Okay, but my Abba is always in the army. I don't think he was born. I think they made him from parts of dead soldiers. Seriously, Abba was in every possible war. So what's another war for him? So he's serving in Jerusalem now. My brother, Major Oded, commander of a platoon in Gaza. Danny, my best friend and my associate from my new organization, a medic in Gaza. My father-in-law, who did not serve in the army for 20 years because, you know, at the age of 52 it was enough. Now he's 72. He took his pistol and his jeep, showed up in a base and said, "Hi, get me back to the army." And he didn't leave before they allowed him to go back. Okay, and he was not alone. The army was flooded with volunteers. While Mr. Putin in Russia needed months and military police and secret service to mobilize 300,000 Russians to his illegal war in Ukraine.
And the prisons were emptied.
And the prisons were empty. In Israel, 150% reservists arrived. And we mobilized 350,000 people in 24 hours. Okay? Because when somebody attacks you, such savages attack you, you respond immediately. Okay? I believe in a way, a few miles from us there is Pearl Harbor. I think that's what happened to America, in a way. But the Japanese did not beheaded American dates. Okay? They went on the army. Elliot and Ari Fine are my family from California. Both of them were lone soldiers like Aliyah, okay, like Jake. And they served both of them in the Nahal. 10 years after they left the army, he left his wife and 2 kids. He left his pregnant wife and 3 kids. Okay, Elliot just came back home after 3 months in the Lebanese border. Ari is still in Gaza. God protected. Okay, there were crazy stories. We don't have time for all of that. Just a highlight, nobody is using those anymore. And in the army, you have a watch because they take your cell phone away. Yes, they do. Otherwise, they're going to tell Iran exactly where you are. Okay, so all the soldiers in the front have to deposit their phones. And then there was a shortage of watches. Okay, weird things, shortage of helmets, shortage of uniform, because 150% soldiers arrived. Okay, the storehouses were flooded, and volunteers and donors started filling up what was necessary, including Mary. Okay? At the same time, I don't know if you've noticed, but Hamas have a lot of supporters, including in this island, I'm sure. Okay? This is one of my favorites. Oh, yeah, can you see that? Where's for Palestine? That's like chickens for KFC. But seriously, some of those supporters, I think, support because they truly believe what they've been told. Okay, some of them are jumping on a trend. Some of them hate the Jews so much. Some of them ignored atrocities all over the world. Okay, there are now 35 active conflicts on the planet. 31 of them include at least one side which is Muslim. I'm just saying. Okay? But when the Jews defend themselves, woo, okay? Try to come to London now, Londostan, or to Paris. And it's not only them. The Iranian proxies started working. And although we're focusing on Gaza, you need to understand there are 100,000 Israeli soldiers that were deployed in the Lebanon border and in the Golan Heights. Because Iranian proxies, like Hezbollah have more rockets than many states on earth. They are clashing with our soldiers. Yes, it's not a full-out war. I believe that eventually it will blow up into a full war. But right now they're just pinning us down. So we will not put whatever we have against Gaza. Okay? Clashes in the West Bank, we'll talk about that. We will talk about that. The ground offensive started eventually after 3 weeks of anticipation. The army needs time to train, to rearm, to regroup. The Israelis are not running inside quickly. Hamas was preparing for years for an Israeli invasion with their tunnels, booby traps. You know where they're locating all their command centers? Yeah, tunnels, but tunnels underneath.
Hospitals.
Hospitals. How many hospitals Gaza has?
36.
Who are you?
I studied.
Okay, that's scary. Yes, 36 just in Gaza. Okay, it's not a small city, but 1 million people don't need 36 hospitals. Okay, they have more hospitals than most of Americans do. And below the hospitals are layers and layers of tunnels like spider webs. Okay, they are using children. And they're using them in kindergartens, in schools. I mean, many of you probably saw the pictures of how weapons were found stashed underneath baby chairs, etc. Okay, that's what we're dealing with. And you can say that Hamas turned itself into the artists of sarcasm when it comes to use children. Okay, let's use that term, children. Because that's how they see them. They have no problem butchering baby girls in Israel while sacrificing their own kids. No problem at all. Here's some of the pictures from Gaza. Gaza, many people believe that Gaza is wiped out now from the face of the earth. It's not that accurate. The buildings in Gaza, unlike American buildings, not they personally, but in Gaza they build with concrete. Okay? And it is almost impossible to blow up 500,000 buildings. You gotta go out there and take them out, door to door, eventually. Stalingrad style. Okay, so what the Israelis are doing is to maximize the firepower, use a lot of armored vehicles, and move carefully and slowly. And this is why, relatively speaking, our casualties are low, relatively speaking. My wife just texted me a few hours ago that she saw 5 helicopters flying above the house. That's bad. Because those helicopters, the Black Hawks, they carry the severely injured soldiers. So every time we see those helicopters coming, something happened in Gaza. Okay, we lost 9 soldiers in an incident. Do you know that 20% of the casualties are friendly fire? Because when you activate forces in such a chaotic battlefield, you will have mistakes all the time. All the time. It is horrible. What a soldier that accidentally killed a friend of his plays with your head. The Gazans suffers horribly. Most of them are now displaced inside Gaza. Let's not forget, by the way, that almost 200,000 Israelis are displaced as well. But the Gazan suffering is hard to imagine. Nevertheless, Israel even now gives them water. You know that? We don't. We do. 2 large water pipes are providing the Gazans with water. Okay? Including the baby killers over there, and we know it. We provide them also food. I'm not trying to say that it's a luxury hotel, but their suffering, nevertheless, is horrible. That is for sure. You all heard, I believe, that there was a, let's call it a prisoner swap, okay, when we delivered Hamas with convicted terrorists that were, we call it light terrorists. Light terrorists are people like this lady over here. Do you see what happened to her face? The bomb that she was carrying to kill Jews burned and burst in flames in her car, and she's considered to be a light terrorist because she didn't manage to kill anybody. Okay? By the way, she demanded Israel plastic surgery on our expense, which she did not get. Just saying, highlight. Okay, so those people, and here is another convicted terrorist you see in the street celebrating, Israelis. He stabbed a Jew in the back, and we still released him in exchange for the most precious thing on earth. This is how we got some of the kidnapped people back to Israel. Okay, I think this was the most powerful. This is the most powerful weapon Hamas have. The people that they kidnapped. You know how many they managed to kidnap? 240 people. I did like a rough calculation. It is like America will, in one day, 5,000 Americans will be kidnapped. In one day. Okay? Most of the kids, thank God, are back home, and most of the women. Some of the women are still in Gaza. Many of them probably, if they're still alive, have been raped and gang raped so many times. Most of them are probably pregnant. And very soon, their pregnancy will be so advanced, they will not be able to perform an abortion. Put aside the question of what you do in this situation. Just think about what their families are going through. Okay, some Israelis say that we wish them to be dead because of what they are doing to prisoners. And see the interviews of some of the hostages that were released. Okay, of what they are doing to people. There are still 136 Israelis in the hands of Hamas. Some are probably dead, but most of them are still alive, used as human shields. The war continues. You can see the blue marks. There, this map, I could not find more updated one. All the northern part of Gaza is now in Israeli hands. With barely any civilians. Almost all the Gazans are in this area. And most of this city, which has more tunnels than the New York subway, Khan Yunis, is now under Israeli hands. It is going to be a long, ugly war. Do you remember the stories of the tunnel rats from Vietnam? Something like that. Because somebody got to go down there eventually. Although I believe, according to the rumors, that the Israelis are using special drones and K9 dogs, etc. You know, you're trying to limit the danger to the soldiers as much as you can.
I read that they were going to be flooding with ocean water.
They tried, from the Mediterranean Sea. They tried a little bit in North Gaza. I heard that they tried, it has very partial success. They stopped. The only way to listen, it's sand, so the water just dissolves, and it's concrete, so the tunnel stays. So the only way to destroy it is to blow it up, and you need thousands of kilos of pounds of explosives to blow it up. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It will take at least many months, at least, to get rid of that tunnel system. The pressure is, I'm sure you all know, is growing on Israel to stop the war, but now there are new developments from the last couple of hours in Yemen, so I don't know how it will affect. We'll have to wait and see. I told you that this is an event that is ongoing. Okay, the potential of this event to escalate and spiral out of control is huge. For now, I can tell you that the suffering of the Gazans continue. You see they're looting a supply truck coming from the Erez interjunction in Israel. Erez is like a gate, international gate between Israel and Gaza, if you want. They stormed it in the first day, by the way. And now we allow trucks to go into Gaza from there. Notice that this fellow over here, you know what that is? RPG, rocket-propelled grenade. He's in civil clothes. When you hear about the Gaza casualties, the other side, they never tell you how many of them are militants, right? Think about it. I think they're now saying that they have 24,000 dead. Okay, at least half of them are militants. Some of the militants, since they're using boy soldiers, are very young. We call it Yaldei RPG kids. What do? You are a young soldier and you see a kid with an RPG that can blow you out to pieces. What would you do? Probably shoot that kid. But the scar will stay in your head and your soul for the rest of your life. Okay, I think it was Golda Meir that said once, we will have peace only when the Arabs will start loving their kids more than they hate ours. And it just continues. You can see the astronomical amount of ammunition that they keep finding all the time. Somebody paid for that. A lot of money. We keep losing good soldiers. Aliyah, you knew her, right?
She's a good friend of my family.
Yeah. An Ethiopian Israeli soldier. She was killed in Jenin by a booby trap so strong that it pierced the armor plates of her jeep. Somebody paid for that too. Okay, it came from Iran probably. The war just continues. This you gotta see. It's hard to see. Can you read? It says Islam will dominate the world and liberty can go to hell. Can you guess where this was taken? This picture?
London.
Way closer to. Oh, we are in Hawaii. There's nothing close to us. Michigan, Dearborn, Michigan.
Oh, that picture there you're saying is from Michigan?
Oh yeah. Somebody did a selfie. Selfie stunt. Okay? Yeah. So good luck with that. Just saying. Always look at the bigger picture, guys, as my lecture is getting closer to its end. Okay? I love those characters because you can see that it's a bigger game. And Israel is just one of the smallest countries, let's not forget that. We're dealing with a powerful organization called Hamas, but behind Hamas you have Iran, and behind Iran you have Russia, and behind Russia you have China. Okay, look at the bigger picture. This is one of the many, many tragic stories of the war. Baby Shaked over here, she is smiling. You know why she's smiling? Because she sees the picture of her dad, okay, of David, above his fresh grave, and of course her mother is crying about her. How many stories like that we have now? Okay. And those are the dead ones. My wife is a military psychologist. Nobody talks about it, but the suicidal rate in Israel is skyrocketing.
Wow.
Two of the Zaka is an organization that collects the bodies. Two of them committed suicide. Many more tried to. Okay, we are talking about a war, a nasty war, that hit us where it hurts the most. I mean, we're going to need a generation to recover from this, if not more. My mission now is to start, well, what we're doing now, thanks to friends like Uncle Barry and you who want to listen. I'm on my way to start a new organization called We Walk Together. Barry, you wanted to take that part to talk about that? Michelle. It is going to tell the story of Israel and to try to fight the global media. Okay, try to stop phenomena like Queers for Palestine, unless they really want to, but people need to understand what we're talking about and what we're dealing with. Because maybe if I'll be able to deliver the story of Israel, maybe we can make a difference. I'm starting with you, but you are the friends. My organization is going to focus later on in African American communities, 13% of the population of America that is getting hostile to Israel as we speak, okay, and the Latinos. This is the gang, okay? You can see the president right here. You can see my partner, Neil. Neil is an Israeli tour guide, just like me, but he is bringing a whole agency with him, so we'll be able to provide all the services for missions coming to Israel and groups of tourists. Pastor Aaron Cordell, a businessman and a devoted evangelical Christian, good friend of Israel, who is going to host me in Michigan very soon. We have this guy over here, Uncle, I love this picture, Carl Moore, who was the head of the EPA under the Trump administration, and he's also part of our new organization. Gal over here, she's in charge of our social media, and since I have a face for radio, we chose her, Einav, to be our presenter, if you want. So, Barry, before you speak, can I show a short video of her? Thank you. Oh. I want to thank my wife. You need to add the part. Amita, for allowing me. That's us in New York City. Amit, the girl, is now in charge of 4 lunatic kids that have severe ADHD like their dad. And I want to thank her because without her, I'm absolutely nothing. Okay? That's it. That's the new organization. So, Betty, I'll just show a quick video of Einav, and then you're going to do your spiel, and then we're going to hear Aliyah.
Hello and welcome to We Walk Together, where we are all about bringing people together. We are on a mission.
Barry, why can't we see it on the television?
Don't ask me technical stuff.
Aliyah!
Our goal is criticism.
Oh no, they're storming the snack bar. Barry, we'll send it to her.
I can
You want to
email.
come and speak, and then we'll take Aliyah's turn? We'll just send it to her. Yeah. Oh, you think that?